That's and more ideas on this, because I would like us to start to live with Simi and I. If you were to go back to our funders who Citizenship and Immigration Canada and offer a recommendation on how media can be used as a vehicle for encouraging multicultural social cohesion, I like to get a statement from each one of you so that we start to think before you take as you eat, and then we can, I think, start to wrap it up.
I guess, my recommendation really is let's move this discussion around multiculturalism to the next level. Let's recognize that Canadians' perspective and relationship to ethnicity and race has changed. We know that. There's more than enough research to show this, and yet we're talking about ethnicity as though it's still the most important thing in our lives. That's the framework of multiculturalism 1.0. We're in 2.0 or even 3.0 at this point, and we keep getting stuck in this kind of old paradigm. And if there's a recommendation I could give, and they've heard this from me before, it's like, let's move the dialogue or the discourse of this to reflect what's actually happening in Canada. People are already multi-ethnic, they're multiracial, they're cultural blends already. So to assume that they're not is out of date. It doesn't reflect what's really happening. So that would be a really, really nice place to start. Does that mean we need an update to the multiculturalism policy? Probably. At least to the paradigms of what we're talking about. Does that mean more work on CIC's side to kind of explain what multiculturalism means now today? Probably. And so I feel that, how many more conferences can we have? How many more dialogues can we have? And we're still talking about 1970s concepts when we are racing towards 2030 faster than anyone can keep up with. Yeah. Right? So I think we're really stuck. The other thing is, I just want to point out that we talked a lot about social cohesion. The thing that really prevents social cohesion in Canada is still racism. And we didn't talk about this at all today. You did a little bit, and you said how some groups are more experience racism differently. Racism has always been tied to the economy. When we heard the American economy was going to bottom out, a lot of us that worked in this field were very concerned because we knew racism was going to go up in Canada. And we rarely hear politicians or government overtly make that connection. It's always easier to be more open-minded when things are looking really good with your pocketbook. Right? And it's communities that aren't doing well that often have some of the most racist ideas of the world, or are challenged with racism in ways. So that's just, nothing can beat socioeconomic prosperity to be a factor that actually fosters social cohesion. And so for all the activities that this might do and we might do in media, it's not going to make up for the fact that, if the haves and have-nots, if that gap is growing or the size of our middle class is shrinking, there's no amount of media that can overcome that in terms of social cohesion. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
I was just a guest speaker today as the opener, but it's really been coming from the Aboriginal world or First Nations world. It's been really a learning process for me today. I'm really happy to sit and listen to all your stories, and I've gone through the racism, I've seen it all, and I've seen the people that have suffered through racism. And as you're talking about media working with the governments and everything, that is a perfect tool that you can use, because when you're talking about old histories and everything, the media, as they always write about what happened and people who have suffered. And as growing up in Vancouver, I've seen the life change, and as I said before, being a Muslim, we never expected Vancouver to change like this. We never believed they would be multicultural as it is. And fortunate enough, I'm also learning from my two children that are young adults now, and they are telling me that people are only people, Dad. They said you don't have to look at what color they are, or where they come from, or their accents they have. They're just people like you are. And I just say, well, my little girl, I said, you've grown up and you've shown me how to be an adult. And I wish everything goes well for your group, and you are on the right lines. And as we say in Musqueam, we say, Nichiwitlafi. It means just keep carrying on. So thank you.
I have a few things I'd like to say. Firstly, I'm very happy to be here and thank all of you for opening my eyes to different perspectives, and I love being here and sharing my perspective. Anyways, firstly, I think what needs to change is the dynamic of what is the mandate of media. I think that needs to be the first avenue of change. I think, like you said, 2030 is fastly approaching. I think that media outlets, traditional media outlets and mainstream media need to really be more conscious of that change, and need to open their eyes and ears and realize that these groups have to be represented in their story making and all of that. So that means that, or designate a portion of their channel to exterior voices to come and represent their communities. So it's not only the local broadcasters that are doing it, but the mainstream guys are doing it too. So that's the one thing that I think needs to change. I also think that, like we mentioned earlier, the youth, empowering the youth, I think is a huge, huge thing. I think that if we are going to provide internships at these mainstream medias, we need to make sure that they have a voice. I said this earlier, but I think that, like you said, like doing, letting them go out with the camera. I mean, let them have one of the cameras that one of the reporters isn't using, and let them go out into their communities and provide these stories. I think is so crucial, because they will be inspired and they will create their own work out of that. And then when the job does come up, they'll be ready and still at it. So I think that's a major thing as well. And I think yeah, I think that's it, really. I think those are the two major things. I think we need to, as a society, really really come together and realize what a Vancouverite is, like you mentioned, what a Canadian is, and really represent that and move forward into the future.